My name is Raj Sandhu. I'm the director of BICAL, also co-founder at BICAL in Sharjah. And what we're going to talk about today is obviously some of the progress we've made with regards to student engagement, not just obviously graduating students who are qualified in computer science or machine learning, but the idea is obviously how some of the second, third year and fourth year students have worked with us in places like Sharjah and Uzbekistan. In the UAE, it's been quite successful. It's taken time, but over the last year, we've basically got 3 students now who are looking to basically be part of a spin out that we're creating from technology that they worked on with us, which involved university research. They've been working with our head of product development, Michael, who's guided them through various understanding of not only how technology works, but how business works as well. And from that group of sort of 12 people, like I said, 2 have come out of that as people who will do spin outs in Uzbekistan. And again, we've had assistance there from the government where they provide us with data. We've basically got 3 students, well, 1 qualified engineer who's part of the team, and 2 students in Fergana Valley, which is quite far from Tashkent. And now based on that, we also confirmed the project which will form a separate spin out as well, again based on technology transfer. So the idea of today is really just to sort of get some feedback in terms of how governments, national or local, can obviously support this type of activity any part of the world, and obviously how the changing face of technology leads us to, I think, creating jobs in a different way. Again, remote applications, remote work is all possible, plus that creativity and ideation. So I think initially, Naz, if you don't mind, a quick intro and what you think of all that.
Absolutely. I'm delighted to spend some time with you again. I'm Nazir Afzal. I was the former chief prosecutor in the United Kingdom, and I'm currently, amongst my many roles, I'm Chancellor of the University of Manchester, which is number 23 in the world. I'm very proud to say. Absolutely agree with you about what you can do. There's a saying, isn't it? If you give a man a fish, you feed them for the day. If you teach them how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. Same thing's true in the tech world. If you give a person a laptop, they can send you an email. If you teach them and mentor them, support them, you create innovation, and ultimately you can take that skill set wider and wider and wider. And that, I think, is the key here. I know what BICAL Al does in giving laptops to people like the ones you just mentioned, but it's also about the opportunity. It's also about tapping into potential. Most people don't know what they can achieve until they see something that they could achieve. And so it's giving them hope, giving them the expectation, managing those expectations, but ultimately allowing them to fly.
Yeah, good point. Chris, anything to add to that?
Yes, well, I think from a public sector point of view, my background was in policing and is now in local authority, health, child protection. In the UK, public sector productivity has been falling over the last 20 years, whilst in private industry it's been rising. The only way that we are going to reverse that trend, because needs are greater now than they were, which is why productivity is lower, is to harness the fruits of technology. And we can only harness the fruits of technology if we've got people with innovation, ideas, capability, who are released to bring their ideas to the fore, which government can then work with. Government itself cannot solve these problems because it doesn't have the capacity, the intellect or the ability. But what it does do, it can provide the sort of fertile ground to enable it to come forward. So what I'm keen to see happen is that we work with small-scale entrepreneurs, people with ideas, and also work as brokers with government to say, you can use these people to help improve the productivity you're desperate to see.
Meritocracy. It's not about what school you went to, what university you went to. It's about what potential you have as an individual and tapping into that. What we've just had a general election in the United Kingdom. We now have a situation where we have 2 ministers from Parswood School in Manchester, more than we have from Eton. So there's a real sense that it doesn't matter where you went to school. It's just the fact that your talent is finally given the opportunity to grow. And as Chris said, the world is their oyster, particularly our young. They know they don't have any obstacles. They don't have any ceilings. And it's about giving them the opportunities, perhaps, that they've never had previously.
Yeah, no, and I think our team actually has been quite good, obviously yourselves included, in how you've helped us sort of advise, and the value is obviously experience helps, people like me, obviously, us as you being the board, it helps us in terms of managing the company, and then likewise we pass that on. And one of the things that's happened, I mean, just to give you another sort of example about cross-border, our head of security for the data center, he's an Egyptian, Ahmed Al-Banna. He's actually working with two, out of the UAE, he's working with two students out of a village in Punjab who are doing cybersecurity, right? And the big thing that we've done, we try to promote locally is obviously we're not going to the Londons, to the Parises, New Yorks and Silicon Valleys. We're going to these second tier or third tier cities. I don't mean that in a bad way. They're not obviously the most sort of known cities. And what we're finding is that universities that are actually quite active are probably underselling themselves because sometimes again resources and notoriety is not there. But they are actually, they can anchor the policy that local governments want. Is they don't want something it's termed as the brain drain. What's happening in places of like Punjab is that obviously the kids are going to Canada because they think the UK, whatever, because they think pastures are greener there. And likewise, you might have kids from Manchester thinking, I've got to go to London to do AI. And things like that. Whereas a lot of the companies we work with now, Lenovo, being one of them, Intel, all their staff are remote. Again, Michael speaks to Intel technology, sort of, technical people from Sharjah, and they're based in Dublin. So that brain drain element, you can actually reduce it, and it allows local people to stay local. So that's something I think
you're 100% right. And of course, COVID's had a massive impact because industry, business, everybody, public service, have realized that you don't have to be in the office to deliver the service in the main. And so remote working, I read a report earlier this week that said the 9 to 5 way of working is going to be redundant in a decade. The idea that you just work 9 to 5 and you go home. Most people find a way now of being able to work from home or from some other environment. But your point is very valid, actually, Raj, that the big metropolitan cities need to watch out, really. If they think that they can draw these people from Bangalore or from Punjab with whatever it is that they offer them, that doesn't work. People may want to and do want to preferably stay as close to home as possible, as long as the work is there, and we can do that remotely in ways that previously we're not able to do.
But then what does someone like Manchester do? I mean, Manchester is a prime example, somewhere we'd like to do stuff.
Yeah, well, Manchester, it's thriving. It's very keen on skills, local skills development. It's about ensuring that people who ordinarily wouldn't get the opportunity get the opportunity. The university works really closely with all the old education institutions, including those young people that aren't in education. We call them NEET in the United Kingdom, and to try and get them. We believe in widening participation. The more and more people that we should get involved in should be able to get the opportunities they haven't previously done so. And they've reached out. The University of Manchester is a very different model to most universities in the UK when it comes to international work. They don't have another campus. I mean, they have a small campus in the UAE, but their plan is that they will deliver something locally for what the local people want. Rather than bring them into Greater Manchester or bring them into the UK, and that's because we want developing countries to develop faster. At the end of the day, that will improve trade, it'll improve business, and ultimately, as Chris said, improve productivity.
And Chris, just to add on to what Nas said there, obviously, like I said, because you work closely within London Borough. What about community building? I think that's something that when you have local people stay, they don't have to move, for high value jobs elsewhere. That obviously enhances security, enhances obviously the sort of face, if you like, of the local.
Yes, town. I mean, connection to community, having a stake in community is sort of one of the building blocks of a stable society. So, if young people and families and community groups feel that this is their community to which they can contribute and from which they receive, then that brings many benefits. From people are healthier, because if you have meaning in life, you're healthy. It reduces social unrest, means the streets are safer, and it's a place where people want to live. So I mean, those are really important factors in having having communities that we all want to live in.
And they can afford to live as well.
Yes.
But obviously in the developed world, house prices are expensive.
Yes.
Everything else is expensive. So absolutely, you build local communities. People can stay there and support their families to the standard they would want to, but also get the opportunities that globally they can get.
No, definitely. No, that's definitely good. I mean, so we've had that with some of the stuff in Tashkent, where obviously the population is very young. They don't necessarily want to move abroad, and you know obviously we benefit that we're not paying the sort of Western, if you like, level of engineers' salary, but you're giving somebody a very comfortable salary in their hometown, and talking more about sort of obviously the technology. I think Chris, you made a good point in terms of obviously bringing back value to the local community and being able to sort of help and solve, but at the same time, and which is what we're doing, right? We're taking one or two challenge statements which are being done in certain parts of the UK, but UAE and in Tashkent as well. And you build the technology there locally, but then we're also like taking that Tashkent technology and saying, okay, look, this might be used in the UK. Obviously, the UK technology used in the UAE, and UAE technology we're actually talking to someone in India about. So being able to build that value, I think, is sometimes is underplayed by a lot of the large big tech companies. So at the moment, what we find is we're battling as a small company against someone saying, oh, we should use Google or we should use Microsoft. The UK is a little bit behind in terms of obviously supporting, I think, sometimes small companies, especially tech companies. I mean, that's my sort of viewpoint. Is Chris, maybe you want to kick off with that from the experience that we've had over the last few years, and if that might change and what needs to change.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're dealing with any large organization, they tend to feel safe dealing with other large organizations. So if you want to make some inroads into public sector productivity, you're talking about trying to engage with government, and government inevitably, as almost sort of as a reaction, want to go to big established companies, and big established companies bring all sorts of on costs with them, and they bring many of the same problems that governments have. So it is a problem for small organizations with good ideas to break into government, because particularly in the UK, which is terribly centralized, the government wants a solution for the whole country. And of course, small companies, what they're saying is, we have a solution perhaps for this community, which might scale, in fact will scale, but we can't actually do it for the whole country now. So, and that is a real challenge when you're trying to deal with large government departments. The UK government tells itself that it wants to do 75% of its business with small and medium enterprises, but their civil servants tend to feel much more comfortable dealing with large enterprises. So, and we've had that struggle over the last several years. Local government actually is a slightly easier place to start, because each local government entity is much smaller than central government, and they are an entity in their own right, so they can do business in their own name. And perhaps with the work we're now doing around trying to improve child protection decision making by using some artificial intelligence, where we're working with some local government agencies, we're starting perhaps to make progress.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. The United Kingdom is very risk averse, and so it's better the devil to put it bluntly. However, Amazon started off selling a few books. So organizations which are now global behemoths started off with very little, and I think what's been said a moment ago is that absolutely, from a UK government perspective and from just national government perspective, they want jobs in their country. We need to be clear about this. So whilst it's absolutely essential that people in the Punjab are able to get the opportunities that they have right now and may not have right now and develop and skill. At the end of the day, from a UK government perspective, or French or whatever it is, they want jobs in the UK and they want jobs in France. And what we have to do is bridge, in effect, that you're by developing skill sets in other parts of the world. As you said, Raj, you can bring in that knowledge, that expertise to the UK or any other country. So it's a two-way thing. It's not just, we are. There's a whole thing about white savior stuff, that we go to different countries and save them. Actually, these developing countries can save us with the skills that they've developed and the opportunities that they have and the knowledge that they have and the talent that they have. And I think that's the direction of travel. And it links in as well to what Chris said about local. We very often we talk about going from local to global. Well, we started here, actually we need to go from global to local. And why do we need to reinvent the wheel? There might be some phenomenal ideas in Tashkent or the UAE or Punjab. Let's bring those ideas in so it becomes global to local and not just the other way around.
No, that's a very valid point. I think the in my view, I think the big tech days, are not numbered, as I told you, because they have so much cash in hand. But definitely Silicon Valley, California, they're trying to change a few laws. So, obviously, Chris, we've done that whole thing about social media and how that affects children. And, I think California is trying to take a bit more of a responsible role this time, that not all the data is sucked into, again, all these large language models, and then that all goes into their IP, and obviously then they just keep growing. So yes, I think definitely the business model is changing. I think the days of these large big tech companies, no one person needs to have $100 billion or whatever it is. You can spread that out and do it. And I think, in my view, I think and we've proven this abroad, is by access to data and the university. The UK universities, to be fair, still are, and I've talked to a lot of international universities. UK universities still are up there in terms of punching way above their weight. The ideas, the ideation that comes out from them, the discussions that you can have with them. And not only that, you can actually get hold of the academics who want to try and implement. Abroad, it's still probably not as good, I would say. I'm not saying the UK is perfect, but abroad, the ideation side and the research side is coming up, is catching up fast. But the UK definitely has a lead, I think, on two things. One is obviously, again, like the UK universities. But the other thing, which was obviously Chris and I always are trying to chase down, is obviously the access to data, or the amount of data that exists and the records that have been kept for the last sort of 50, 60 years. And I think utilizing that would unlock the opportunities, which again we've done for in the UAE and Uzbekistan. I think we could do in the UK. I suppose, Chris, that's the main challenge, isn't it now? As well?
No, absolutely. You mentioned, the UK's got 6 universities in the top 25 in the world, and given we've only got 80 million people, that's just not right. It doesn't feel right that, and the United States have so many as well. So it dominates on the sort of global league tables front. Which is great, and it brings in professors and PhDs from all over the world to help them. But it does feel one way a little bit. I don't think we give as much back to the global world as we receive from the global world. I think that has to change, simply because the IT and tech is a global thing. It's not something delivered. The Greater Manchester, where I live, and the northwest of England, is where the Industrial Revolution started 200 odd years ago. It's where steam trains first started and stuff like this. But the reality is that the new Industrial Revolution is a global one, and we need to be able to work collaboratively, collegiately. You made a good point though. We've been collecting data longer than most countries have, and we're too precious. It goes back to my point about risk averseness. We're too precious about protecting it, actually, rather than utilizing it. You can do it confidentially, you can do it safely, but it will give you so much that you can work with to bring some change. And I think that's clearly what everybody wants now. Is they don't want to do things the way they've always done things.
Right. I mean, on tech development and like I say, going back to those universities, I do think there should be more involvement with the local government. We've just done something here, hopefully, which with Uzbekistan, where the government wanted some concessions and this, that, and the other, pricing and stuff. We said, okay, great, we're going to have 2 interns that are going to be, based in your office, right? And then they're like, okay, cool. They just don't want to do the effort. I think sometimes, I think people are tied into their jobs day to day, and getting them to do something maybe a bit out of the ordinary is always a bit hard. People are unreliable. Obviously, kids are unreliable. That happens. There's not much you can do. You can only create the opportunity and then wait for them to come. So, No, so I'll definitely keep. So thanks for your time today. Obviously, like I said,
Yes.
we've got these two projects that are unfolding, and you're bound to sort of meet the students that are involved in that. And likewise, like I say, with the UK, we have got some projects running, and hopefully we get the local universities involved in those as well. All right.
Good to speak to you.
Thank you.